Our beautiful and fragile planet is the worst kept secret in the universe. Strange, but true.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Strange But True, live from the London Television Centre. Tonight, committed UFO investigators and skeptics will debate one of the great unanswered questions of the 20th century, which is not, do UFOs, unidentified flying objects, exist, because they undoubtedly do. The question is, are some UFOs actually extraterrestrial in origin? You at home will have a chance to vote with your opinion, an opinion that might change as the debate progresses. These are the numbers you can ring. 0891 980 111 if you believe aliens have visited Earth. 0891 980 222 if you believe they haven't. A call won't cost more than 10p and lines are open now and will stay open for the next 90 minutes. Now, it was 50 years ago this week that an American pilot reported the first flying saucer. And since then, there have been thousands more sightings. Most, on investigation, have been found to have a perfectly rational explanation. But in tonight's programme, we'll be looking at some of the most inexplicable sightings. Live by satellite, we'll hear amazing revelations from astronauts. And in the studio, we brought together some key witnesses. Penny Smith is with them now.
Thanks, Michael. Amongst the audience tonight are people who've reported sightings of UFOs. The witnesses we'll be calling upon tonight are all professionals. They're pilots, military personnel, people with little to gain and a lot to lose by going public about their experiences. They've all certainly seen UFOs, but were their sightings more significant than that? Well, tonight we'll be giving you the chance to judge for yourself. Michael.
Thank you, Penny. Tonight, we're joined by 6 people whose views are clearly divided on the subject of aliens and UFOs. 3 of them are firm believers that extraterrestrials have already visited the Earth. And 3 of them, I think it's fair to say, are not. To argue the case for alien life on Earth, or in the skies immediately above us, please welcome Nick Pope, Timothy Good and Stanton Friedman. Nick Pope was the Ministry of Defence's UFO desk officer and the author of the bestseller Open Skies, Closed Minds. Timothy Good is a UFO investigator and author of another bestseller, Beyond Top Secret. And Stanton Friedman is a nuclear physicist and author of Top Secret Magic, an investigation into UFO cover-ups. And on the other side, Dr. Chris French, Dr. David Hughes and Professor Frank Close. Chris French is a psychologist who specialises in paranormal belief. David Hughes is a professional stargazer and he's head of astronomy at Sheffield University. And Frank Close is a theoretical physicist in Oxford. I don't think Frank has a current book to plug, but a lot of people are very excited about his forthcoming paper called From the Electron to the Top Quark, A Century of Particle Physics. Looking forward to that. Enjoyed the last one very much. Now, so let us get one thing very clear from the start. You, gentlemen who support the UFO belief, actually believe what would be one of the most momentous events in human history, which is the arrival of extraterrestrials in our solar system. In fact, to our planet. You say this has already happened.
Many times.
Simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that. Overwhelming evidence.
Well, you have more to say on that subject as we go along through the programme.
I think so.
Yes. So, Timothy?
I'm absolutely convinced that a sizable percentage of all UFO reports are absolutely genuine, represent possibly extraterrestrial craft. Yes, I'm convinced of that.
And Nick, what's your view?
Yes, 3 years of official research and investigation at the Ministry of Defence convinced me that there are extraterrestrial craft visiting here now.
All right, now let's ask the skeptics. Of course, you don't take any of this on board, do you?
If at this moment I said, yes, I do, that would really throw you, wouldn't it?
Well, it would bring it down to 2 on the other side.
Show me the belief, show me the real evidence, and I'll take it, but I'm waiting for it.
David?
I'm just looking forward to seeing the hardware.
Yes, that is really what we're all looking forward to, in a way. Dr. Chris French?
Yeah, well, again, we're often told that the evidence is irrefutable. I mean, the truth is that there's no single case that all ufologists agree on as being irrefutable evidence. And we'll see the holes in the evidence as this programme progresses.
Well, that is the word that comes up again and again, evidence. In the end, it all comes down to evidence. Before we review that evidence, let us see where our studio audience stands in the debate about non-terrestrial life. Now, let me ask you, how many of you believe that we are completely alone in the universe and that no other intelligent life exists? Vote now, please. Right, let's see the answer to that vote. Are we alone in the universe? 21% say yes, 79% say no, we are not. All right, another question. How many of you believe that aliens have actually visited Earth? Press yes now if you think they have, and no if you don't. A lot of giggling there because you couldn't actually find the button, I suspect. Right. Have aliens already visited Earth? Yes, 73%. No, 27%. So you are, you're on an uphill job, you skeptics.
Surprisingly non-representative audience.
It was a surprisingly high vote in that sense, which of course gives you some encouragement, I'm sure. We'll see if those results change here in the studio as we listen to the arguments. You at home can vote on the big question, have aliens visited Earth, by dialing 0891 980 111 if you think yes, and 0891 980 222 if you think no. The lines are open now and calls will cost no more than 10p. Now, the vast majority of UFO sightings, over 90%, are explainable. On investigation, they prove to be weather balloons, natural atmospheric phenomena, or even something as simple as a flock of birds. But a few sightings always remain a mystery. That on its own, of course, neither proves nor disproves the existence of alien life. But the testimony you're about to hear is certainly intriguing. The sky at night, a vast expanse of stars and planets. But as we watch the skies, is anyone out there watching us, watching them?
065, 450 knots.
For almost 50 years now, military and civil pilots have been reporting strange objects in the sky. The very first UFO sighting from the air happened on the 24th of June, 1947. A pilot with the United States Forest Service was out searching for a missing plane over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state. Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 bright objects in the sky, traveling at fantastic speed. He said they looked like a saucer would if you skipped it across water. Britain, too, had its flying saucer reports. Winston Churchill wrote a memo about them. What, he wanted to know, did it all amount to? Once again, there was the evidence of pilots that provoked most concern to the authorities.
Anything received from our own RAF pilots was examined with very great care. We're talking about very highly trained people whose job in life is to fly about the skies and not to be conned by optical illusions or clouds or whatever. So one had to take seriously what they were saying.
There were several sightings by British pilots, but the authorities kept quiet about them.
The Air Ministry would not have been keen to let it become public knowledge that some of our pilots had seen flying saucers. We had no explanation. One could imagine the kind of tabloid headlines there would have been. We didn't want it.
On the day of the eclipse of the sun, some of the crew and passengers of a BOAC Stratocruiser.
But while military sightings remained secret, reports from civil pilots escaped censorship.
That's what it looked like, very roughly. I think there's no question that it was no illusion and that it was being intelligently handled.
In 1954, BOAC Captain James Howard reported a sighting.
It was July the 29th, 1954, and we were en route to Goose Bay in Labrador, flying at our assigned altitude of 19,000 feet. It was a lovely summer evening. I was looking down on the left-hand side of the airplane, and I saw through broken cloud something moving alongside us. There were 7 in all objects. There was one large one and 6 smaller ones. The big one also appeared to be changing its shape gradually, and it stayed with us. And the passengers became interested, naturally. And in fact, everybody was agog.
We couldn't tell the passengers what it was because we just didn't know. Some were laughing about it, and some were saying, oh, it's, Martians have landed, and silly things like that, but no one knew.
Today, more pilots are coming forward with their stories of UFO sightings. Pilots like Graham Shepherd, who saw one in 1967.
Now, the senior captain we were flying with at the time, he advised us strongly that we shouldn't report it, we should make no mention of it at all. And at that time, way back in 1967, he said quite clearly to us that it would compromise our careers if we talked about it.
But Graham is now prepared to talk openly.
We were flying from Scotland back to London, cruising at about 24,000 feet. The Preston radar controller at the time, he advised us that we had fast-moving opposite direction traffic in the airway, heading towards us at our 12 o'clock position, which was straight ahead. Now, of course, we looked out, three-man crew, we looked out, and into view almost immediately came a disc-shaped craft. The sun was shining on it. I was looking down on a disc about 30 feet diameter with a slightly raised center portion, no markings that I can remember, but it was shining in the sunlight. It was certainly metallic. Any high-speed airplane so close to us would have given us a bump. Now, the very curious thing about this very close approach is that it didn't leave a shockwave.
The most convincing UFO evidence would involve independent sightings by a number of pilots and confirmation by radar. There is one such case. It's called the Kaikoura incident. 2 planes were buzzed by UFOs in separate incidents on the same night. One was flying south over the Kaikoura Peninsula in New Zealand. It was piloted by Captain Vern Powell with First Officer Ian Peary.
There was this large orb. We had no idea what it was, just a light hanging in the sky. The effect on me was prickling at the back of my neck. That soon ceased when I realised that we weren't being attacked at all, that it was just out there.
The object trailed the plane. It was picked up on the radar screen at Wellington Airport.
Flaps 20 degrees.
They would describe a light that they could see that would be moving north over the hills beyond Blenheim, and we would see, coincidentally, a target on our radar that was also moving north at the same time, and made us think that perhaps these things were related to each other. We were sure they were an aircraft because they were flying in too tight a pattern, and secondly, no aircraft had been notified to us as being airborne that night. They would had to have had a clearance from me to operate.
But the most dramatic moment of the night came as an aircraft flown by Keith Hine was buzzed by an unidentified object.
I must confess I was a little apprehensive at that stage as to just what was going on and what its intentions were. And then that began to move back in towards us, and at quite a rapid speed at one stage it was on an intercept course with us.
Miraculously, a collision was avoided. But it's not just aeroplane pilots who make credible witnesses. Another group who are bound to be taken seriously are astronauts, several of whom have spotted things they can't explain.
Okay, I'm tracking you guys optically. It's really working good.
12404, and we'd like that.
In February 1971, Edgar Mitchell became the 6th man to walk on the moon during his mission with Apollo 14.
It's been a long way, but we're here.
The idea that we are the sole evolved species in the universe is an absurd notion.
Mitchell believes there has been UFO contact, though he's not encountered any himself. But he is impressed with evidence he's been told about by people in US military intelligence.
These folks are ready to tell their story. They have been checked out. They were where they said they were. They had the job they said they had. And their story is that much of the ET lore is true. There's a lot of nonsense around it, but much of the core evidence is true. The witnesses I'm talking about range everywhere from control tower and radar tower operators up to officers both in intelligence and the military community whose particular jobs were investigation or management of operations that had to do with investigating UFO and ET.
3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition. What a liftoff. And liftoff. Roger, ignition.
For over 10 years, Gordon Cooper was one of America's top astronauts. He was the last man to orbit the Earth alone as part of the Mercury program in 1963. Today, age 70, he is still active in aviation. He saw saucer-shaped spacecraft when he was a young test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base. He tells his story for the first time.
I had a camera crew who was working at Edwards, filming the installation of a precision landing facility on the edge of the dry lake bed when a small saucer flew over them, put down 3 landing gear and landed about 50 yards from them out on the lake bed. These cameramen proceeded to go towards the vehicle, filming all the time. It lifted up, put the gear back in the well, and took off. They came to me and told me what had happened. I had to report it to the proper authorities in Washington. In the meantime, they were developing the film, brought the film to me when it was developed, and I saw the film personally. I stuck it in a pouch and sent it to Washington as ordered to do so, and that's the last I saw it.
There is a reason the testimony of these pilots and astronauts is more credible than any other, according to 20-year NASA veteran research scientist Richard Haynes.
The pilot brings to this whole field a rather unique and very important experience level that sheds some new light on the phenomenon. I would like to be able to dismiss all of the pilot sightings and say they're natural phenomena, but I just can't do that. I've talked to too many who tell me these remarkable stories of silvery metallic discs with no seams, no markings, no wings, no engines, outside their aircraft for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes at a time, doing maneuvers around the airplane, and then flying off into space somewhere in some direction. And not just seen by one pilot, but the first officer oftentimes, the flight engineer, sometimes the cabin attendants, sometimes passengers.
Haynes has recorded over 3,000 UFO sightings by pilots across the world, enough to convince him there must be something out there. So is it, after all that, is it likely that witnesses such as professional pilots have been fooled by imaginary lights, strange atmospheric phenomena, or other aircraft? Earlier, we heard Captain Graham Shepherd recount his own UFO experience, and he's boldly agreed to join us tonight. Graham Shepherd. Graham, are you still convinced that what you saw wasn't just a trick of the light?
I'm totally convinced, yes. I've spent some 30 years in the air, and there's nothing like it before or since. I'm absolutely convinced there was no light trickery or whatever.
Frank Close, do you accept what Frank says, that what Graham says? Is that reasonable to you?
Well, I mean, I've no doubt at all that he saw what he saw or believes he saw what he saw. But there's many things that I would want to know even to start investigating this. I mean, Preston Radar alerted you to this thing. What have press and radar said about this since? What happened to it after it went by you? What other planes were in the area? Did nobody else report it at all or see it? And why were you worried about reporting it if press and radar had already alerted you to it?
As far as I can remember, there were no other aeroplanes alerted. The craft was flying at an extremely high speed. Once Preston radar had alerted us, of course, we looked out to see if it was coming. And it came into sight almost immediately. It was going, I would say, at a speed well over 600 miles an hour, which is the speed of sound, probably around about 1,000 miles an hour.
So it would very quickly be seen by any other planes who were on the same flight path with you?
Yes, I must emphasise this was back in the 60s, and the density of traffic at those times was considerably less than it is now.
This is going at high speed, so it's covering a lot of distance very fast.
Well, I distinctly remember reporting it to Preston Radar because I was doing the radio at the time. I was sitting in the right-hand seat, and I remember reporting to Preston Radar controller, we have contact. It's in the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock position, and it was gone. So it was an extremely short sighting, but indelibly printed on my mind. It's something I've never seen before or
But you saw no aliens in it?
I saw no markings on it. All I could see was the shining surface.
What time of day, Graham?
It was afternoon. It was mid-afternoon, I would say. Beautiful day.
Nick Pope, you've investigated, as working for the Ministry of Defence, of course, many UFO sightings. What is the proportion that can be explained by natural phenomena?
It's about 9 out of 10, something like that. But, you know, Graham's raised an important point, and the Civil Aviation Authority have on their case files an awful lot of near collisions between UFOs and aircraft. And there are some interesting military reports too. 5th of November 1990, some RAF Tornado aircraft were flying across the North Sea. They were casually overtaken by a UFO, and they made a report to the Ministry, a structured craft.
Graham, why have so few pilots actually come forward if these sightings are so common?
Well, it's a high-risk occupation. I'm not talking about being a pilot, I'm talking about reporting UFOs, because it's a difficult thing to talk about. Because the whole subject is denied at the highest level, it is very difficult for people like me who are in a long-term profession to come forward and jeopardise that profession by stating something which is apparently impossible.
Yes, that's understandable. I was just going to come to you, Chris, because it might be your area of psychology that might explain.
I mean, there's an assumption we're making here, which is that pilots, astronauts, etc., make better observers than other people. And it's easy to see why. I mean, they're highly trained, highly skilled people. But when they're in a situation of seeing something unexpected, for a very brief period, they're just as likely to, you know, make mistakes and be sincere in their reports, but make mistakes as anyone else. According to J. Allen Hynek, widely considered to be the father of modern UFO investigation, pilots actually were surprisingly poor observers. He actually analysed many cases and generally found that the cases that were reported by pilots which ultimately turned out to be identifiable flying objects, range from 88, 89%, 76, 79%, depending upon whether we're talking about military, civilian, single witnesses, multiple witnesses. In fact, the evidence doesn't support this claim. I'm sure that the other panel must agree that at least some of those cases that we've just seen dealt with would no doubt have mundane explanations had they been investigated fully. Statistically, that should happen.
I think you have to understand here that the question isn't whether 60, 40, 30, 20% of pilot sightings or anybody else's are alien spacecraft. The question is whether any are. Yeah. And as Dr. Haynes pointed out, and I've talked to him about this, many of the sightings last like 30 minutes. We begin to very quickly run out of conventional explanations if a round disc-shaped vehicle goes around your airplane in broad daylight when you have a military or a civilian crew.
No, but it didn't go around his airplane, it shot right past
it.
Well,
right,
we will have to leave
cases like that.
And also, he has no idea about the speed. It was 600 miles an hour, 1,000 miles an hour. You've no idea really about the size.
We'll have to leave this aspect of the thing at the moment because we have other things to talk about, so thank you very much. We have to go on now. We have one more witness to make a contribution to this debate. Earlier, we heard the extraordinary story of Gordon Cooper, one of the original Right Stuff astronauts, who claims he saw an alien craft land on Earth. There's a remarkable story, but it's not just NASA astronauts who say they've had an extraterrestrial encounter. A few hours ago, I talked by satellite to Major General Pavel Popovich, head of aviation for the Russian Space Agency. A former cosmonaut, he first flew in space when he was just 20 years old. Dobry wieczór, Major General Popovich. Now, for years, we didn't know about your attitude to UFOs because of the Cold War, but what is the Russians' view of UFOs?
The Russians generally have a positive attitude to UFOs, although, of course, there are skeptics.
Can I have some example of a sighting? The general has seen a UFO himself.
In 1972, when we were on our way back from Washington to Moscow on a passenger airplane, we all saw something that we called a UFO. It was going parallel to us on a slightly higher speed. No one observing this object could come up with any theory of what it was.
General, did you think that what you saw was an alien craft?
I'm absolutely certain about it.
Spasiba, Major General Popovich. Well, thanks to the General, thanks to the translator, and thanks to our English pilot earlier on. It's now time for us to take a break. Remember, if you want to take part in our telephone poll on the big question, have aliens visited Earth, ring 0891 980 111 if the answer is yes. If the answer is no, ring 0891 980 222. After the break, we'll be looking at one of the most sensational UFO incidents ever, which happened right here in Britain. We'll be talking live to the Air Force officer who made this dramatic tape recording.
There's no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. It's yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it, too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way.
Join us in part 2. Welcome back. I've just been told we've had 30,000 calls so far, all voting, I hope. Anyway, as I said at the start of the programme, the majority of UFO sightings are explainable. But the one we're about to look at, known as the Rendlesham Forest incident, is the best documented and the most baffling UFO landing in Britain. 17 years after it took place, skeptics and ufologists are as divided as ever. Bentwaters and Woodbridge, twin military air bases in East Anglia. The 3 miles that divide them are filled by Rendlesham Forest. Until last year, the bases were occupied by the 81st Tactical Fighter Wing of the United States Air Force. Although a normally uneventful assignment, they formed a strategic part of Western Europe's defences. As such, they had top security status. Nothing could get in or out without being detected. In December 1980, at Woodbridge Base, Airman John Burroughs was on security patrol with a colleague.
Do you see that in the woods? There were strange lights out in the forest. To me, it almost looked like Christmas lights at first, a Christmas display. I'll open the gate. At that point, we looked at each other and we decided that we better go out and take a closer look because we weren't sure what we were dealing with. What we were looking at wasn't real. Those are no Christmas lights. Come on, let's get out of here.
Airman Burroughs and his colleague raced back to the gatehouse, where he contacted the security controller.
Roger, Control, we're on our way over.
I received a call from the control center to go on down to the east gate and contact John Burroughs. And I asked him what was the nature of the problem down there. And they said that they'd rather not tell me. They'd rather have me go down there and talk to the patrolman on scene.
What is that?
I don't know, and I don't want to know.
Did you hear an explosion, John?
It didn't crash, it landed.
Whatever it was, Sergeant Penniston knew they had to go and find out.
I got permission to proceed off base to investigate.
Following military rules, the Americans had to leave their weapons behind.
One part of me wanted to go ahead and go out there and figure out what we were dealing with, and the other part of me was saying, no, you don't need to go out there, just go ahead, stay back at the gate where it's safe and you don't have to worry about what's going on.
The men went through the forest towards the lights.
This is as far as we go. It's out on foot now.
I started to see a defined shape, and at that point is when I realized it wasn't an aircraft crash, a fire, or anything of that sort. The air was filled with electricity that you could feel it on your skin as we approached the object.
You felt like you were moving in slow motion. Your hair on the back of your head was standing up. You felt like you had very little control over your body.
Then they saw it.
I wish I had my weapon because I felt totally defenseless.
It was about the size of a tank. It was triangular in shape. Underneath the craft was a high-intensity white light emanating out of it, and it was bordered by red and blue lighting, alternating.
When nothing happened, the men, deciding the object wasn't hostile, got up to take a closer look.
On the upper left side of the craft was an inscription that measured 6 inches high of symbols. They looked familiar, but I couldn't ascertain why.
The Americans watched for about 20 minutes.
And slowly started moving back, weaving in and around the trees. Got about 40 feet away, then it raised up into the air, and it shot off as fast as you can blink.
The next morning, the airmen went back to the scene to investigate.
We found branches on the ground. We found indentations in the ground.
Then they remembered that the object they had seen was triangular. They measured the distance between the indentations and discovered that they formed an equilateral triangle. The activities soon came to the attention of the Deputy Base Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt.
I was sure something had happened. There was obviously something. I certainly wasn't convinced it was a UFO, but I didn't know what it was.
There was only one way to find out. Huge portable floodlights, known as light-alls, were rigged in the forest, ready for anything which might appear the next night. But as darkness fell, the light-alls began to malfunction. Lieutenant Colonel Holt was interrupted at a Christmas dinner.
The duty flight lieutenant came in, and he was quite shaken and insisted upon speaking myself and the base commander about a matter of utmost urgency. He said, "It's back." And I said, "What's back?" And he said, "The UFO is back." I assembled a small team of experts, and we set off in the forest really to debunk it.
About 30 men followed the lights into the forest, armed with special equipment, including a night vision scope, Geiger counter, and a tape recorder.
Right, this way. I'm certainly glad we made the tape, because if we hadn't made the tape, even I would have trouble believing what happened that night.
But would anyone else believe them?
This way.
It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way.
I knew there was something there. There had to be something there. But I also was firmly convinced there was a logical explanation for what was going on. It's very unusual to have a problem with a light-all. That night, the light-alls wouldn't work, even when they swapped out and got other ones from the base. In addition, we had problems with our radios. All 3 frequencies we were using were intermittent and did not work properly that night.
But other equipment was working. A night vision scope, a Geiger counter, and a tape recorder. The sound in this reconstruction is taken from the actual tape they claim to have recorded that night.
There is no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. It's yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it, too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way.
It pulsated as though it were an eye winking at you. And around the edges, it appeared to have molten metal dripping off it, just like falling to the ground. But I didn't see any evidence of anything on the ground. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. Here I am, a senior official that routinely denies this sort of thing and diligently works to debunk them, and I'm involved in the middle of something that I can't explain.
The Geiger counter was measuring levels 10 times normal background radiation.
Just jumped up to 7/10 there. 7/10 right there in the center? Uh-huh. We're getting very positive readings. You're getting readings on the tree you're taking samples from? Where clicks max. That's the strongest point on the tree? Yes, sir.
The object suddenly exploded, a silent explosion, and broke into 3 to 5 white objects and rapidly disappeared.
A mile away, Airman John Burrows was with the broken-down light alls.
All of a sudden, out of the distance, a blue light streaked past us. Passing the light alls, they came on. It passed through the open window on the truck, going off into the distance, and the light alls went out.
As we moved out of the forest, we noticed 3 objects in the sky. The objects in the sky were moving about, sharp, angular movements, very high speed. It's as if it's looking for something. I kept getting on the radio and calling the command post.
Thunder, this is Stopper. Call radar and ask them what they've got 30 degrees above the horizon and 10 miles out.
I wanted to know if they were finding anything on the radar scope. One of the objects in the sky was sending down beams of light, beams of energy. I'm not sure what they were. But at the same time, I could hear on the radio voices talking about the beams coming down on the base.
Then a beam shone straight at them.
At this stage, my skepticism had definitely disappeared. I was really in awe.
Almost as rapidly as it appeared, it went. So, what really did happen in Rendlesham Forest that night? Ian Ridpath, journalist and a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society, dismisses Colonel Holt's account, and tonight he offers his own theory. Ian Ridpath. Ian, you believe that the Rendlesham landing wasn't a UFO landing at all?
No, I don't. I was intrigued by this case because it seems to be that irrefutable evidence that we were talking about earlier, and it's backed up by the word of Colonel Charles Holt and written documentary evidence. But if you look at the different aspects of the case, you can find that there are perhaps many different things which have been lumped together to make the whole thing seem more mysterious than it really is. Now, to start with, the light they saw at 3 o'clock in the morning, apparently falling, something crashing into the forest, I discovered there was a bright fireball, a natural piece of space debris burning up in the atmosphere at exactly that time. I think that's probably what they saw. Then the men went out into the forest. They saw this flashing white light. They said it seemed to illuminate the forest with a white light. Now, someone had called the police. The local police came and took a look. They searched the area. They couldn't find anything. They said the lights were the Orford Ness Lighthouse. Now, I should explain about the Orford Ness Lighthouse because this comes up quite a lot in the case. The Orford Ness Lighthouse sits on the coast at Orford, about 5 miles away from where they were in the forest. And it appears very much closer when you're in the forest at night. It's a very bright light. It flashes away, and because of the way the land falls towards the coast, it looks as though it hovers just above ground level, and as you move about, the thing seems to move about too. Now, the following morning, as we saw on the film, the men went out into the forest again. They saw what they claimed were landing marks. They were only very small. They're only about 1.5 inches deep, only about the size of your hand. This seems quite small for something maybe the size of a tank, which is supposed to come from interstellar space, land on 3 little tripod legs. The police were called out again. They said to us, that looks like the marks of an animal. Now, the local forester also saw all those marks. He was quite sure that they were just rabbit scrapings.
I think he's here, isn't he? Vince Sturkettle, you're here? Yeah. And was that your opinion?
It certainly was, yeah.
That it was simply?
I mean, I was really excited when the rumours started going, and I've been consistently disappointed as each piece of evidence comes up.
Can we just, Vince, while you're there, I mean, could a thing the size of the tank that they described on the film have actually moved through those trees?
Well, over the years, the 17 years, the opinion keeps changing. The craft was 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. I mean, the trees are actually 10 to 15 feet apart. So it's almost like the story has changed to fit the site.
Can I ask Nick Pope about the radiation readings? Because we reported in the film, were very high.
That's right. I mean, all these theories about lighthouses, and I've heard it said that the triangular indentations in the forest floor were due to rabbits. Well, they must be radioactive rabbits, because I checked these out with the Defence Radiological Protection Service when I was working
at Secretariat Air Staff in the MOD, and they certainly did confirm to me, yes, of course, there's background radiation everywhere. We wanted to make sure it wasn't that, and it was indeed 10 times normal. So the lighthouse theory, clever though it is, I'm afraid just doesn't work.
Frank Close, how do you explain this radiation?
Well, the radiation is unusual because it's for a rare occasion we've at last got something you can go and check. And so I did. And what I did, I've got hold of, this is the British equivalent of the standard US Air Force issue, which is used usually for measuring huge amounts of radiation, like in nuclear blasts and so forth. All you need to notice is there's a dial on the front here, and it looks very much like the speedo in your car. Now, the speedo in your car is great for measuring whether you're exceeding the speed limit or not, but you know what it's like. You're stuck in the traffic jam doing nothing, but it's still flickering at the bottom. We know from the report that Colonel Holt made at the time that the amount of radiation they thought they were detecting on their machine was very, very small, 0.1. And we've checked with the makers of the US equivalent, and they said, their quote is, that this measurement was the bottom reading of the machine and was of little or no significance at all. So it was not possible with the device to measure that small amount. But what I have got here is something that you could have done, and it's this, and it shows the other thing, which is even if the radiation was 10 times bigger, it doesn't matter very much at all. Look, in the room, can you hear the Geiger counters going off already? Because there's radiation all around us. Here I've got some rock that you can find lying around if you live in Cornwall all over the place. It's pitch blende. And that sends it up 100 times. Sending radiation backgrounds up by a factor of 10 means nothing at all.
Thank you very much. That was impressive. Ian Ridpath, thank you very much for being with us.
I think it was vastly overstated, however.
Stanton Friedman says we overstated that, but there are more arguments to come. We've heard a few, but now let us hear from the man who was there that night, Colonel Chuck Holt. Now, Colonel Holt, you've heard these various comments and explanations. 17 years ago, do you still hold to your story?
I certainly do, and I'd like to make a couple of comments. One, the story, so to speak, as far as the size and shape, has not changed through the years. I took original statements from the 3 people that actually approached the object and did it a day afterwards, and they all said the same thing when they were independently interviewed, and they all said it was approximately 9 feet on the side and it was triangular. They have not changed that story. Now, many other people have come forward that supposedly were there, that I questioned, but we won't get into that, and said lots of various and sundry things, but those 3 people have said the same thing consistently and do to this day. Also, the indentations in the forest, I have in my hotel room a caster plast for one of those indentations, and there are other ones made. There were 3 made, and they are not an inch, they are approximately 3.5 inches, and they're consistent in diameter, approximately 14 to 15 inches.
And it was an equilateral triangle.
Equilateral triangle. And as far as your radiation, the machine we used was calibrated. Yes, it was on the low range. And we went around the forest. And that area, that specific area was hottest in the center of the triangle. The rest of the forest was cold, so to speak, nothing but background radiation. I was not alarmed. I'll admit it was a minimal amount, but it was certainly above background radiation. And that's something we can never settle, I realize.
Can I just question you on one thing, sir, because you did make a testimony at the time, and being at the time is perhaps the most important thing. And you said that the depressions were 1.5 inches deep. You've just now said they were much bigger than that. Now,
I have the plaster cast.
So was your original statement wrong?
I have the plaster cast, and you can see the plaster cast. I wish I had brought it this evening.
Yes, I wish you had. That's a nice thought.
It would have been nice to hear.
Penny has someone in the audience who has a view on this, haven't you, Penny?
I do indeed, yes. Jenny Randalls was one of the original investigators at Rendlesham and has actually visited the site. What do you think happened?
Well, I've been following this case all over the world, tracking down evidence for 17 years, and I've absolutely no doubt that these airmen did see something quite extraordinary in the forest. However, it's enormously complicated by the fact that on Orford Ness Island, apart from the lighthouse, the National Security Agency, that's the NSA, one of America's most secret intelligence agencies, were carrying out an extraordinary experiment. Officially, it was an over-the-horizon radar test. That's to try and detect aircraft from lots and lots of miles away. But some of this energy, we understand, leaked out into the into space. And we also know that there was a military satellite from the Soviet Union which was nuclear powered, which was decaying in its orbit that night, and it burned up over Rendlesham Forest, and it changed its orbital path as it did that in a quite extraordinary fashion. We suspect it's possible that some experiment was going on where they may have actually used this equipment to scramble the computers on board that Soviet satellite, and may even have brought it down. Now, of course, if that's true, it gives you a reason, regardless of whether there were any aliens in Rendlesham Forest, why there could have been a massive cover-up. And I've seen
So you're saying it's a military cover-up?
Well, I've seen many times the governments of the world use the UFO phenomenon as a kind of smokescreen. They hide their own tests of secret technology, knowing that if people see these things, they're going to report them as UFOs. And it's great they can get away with doing things in areas they normally wouldn't be able to.
OK, well, we're going to cover that a bit more later on in the programme. Michael?
Yes, we are. We shall come to that. But at the moment, Colonel Holt, it has been suggested a military cover-up. You were a military man. Were you part of that?
Definitely not, and I'd be willing to take a polygraph test on that. I can't say it wasn't. To the best of my knowledge, it wasn't, and I certainly was not a party to it, if there was something.
Secrets be kept by the military?
Generally, but with some success, yes. But generally things come out over a period of time.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Remember, if you've made up your mind on the big question, have aliens visited Earth, ring 0891 980 111 if it's yes, and 0891 980 222 if it's no. So, join us in a few minutes, if you will. Bye for now. Welcome back. Now let's address a crucial matter, the number of independent witnesses who've come up with the same account of flying saucers. Why do so many of them claim to have been abducted by aliens? Is the sheer volume of reports proof that something is really going on, or merely an indication that mass hysteria has taken hold? We went to America's #1 UFO hotspot, Gulf Breeze, to test the water. The town of Gulf Breeze spends its time basking in the subtropical sun of the Florida Panhandle. Separated from the mainland, it wallows in the superheated waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Nothing much used to happen in this small affluent town, apart from the occasional wrath of a hurricane. But on November the 11th, 1987, a new storm hit town that would change the lives of some of the residents forever.
My thoughts were to catch a picture of it as it went overhead. This strange blue beam came out of it and struck me.
And this object was just hovering. It was perfectly still.
We're seeing something that we're obviously seeing, but we have no concept of what it is that we're seeing.
It's coming towards us. Isn't it closer to us?
It was a reader's contribution to a local Gulf Breeze newspaper which sparked off a unique phenomenon which would draw in tens of thousands of people.
I returned to the office one day and my secretary said that a man had brought in some UFO photographs.
That man was Ed Walters, a local builder, but he wasn't the only one who saw strange things over Gulf Breeze.
My wife and I had been in town and setting up tables at our church. As we were driving towards our home, suddenly up ahead, I saw this craft hovering above trees, and I pointed it out to my wife, and we watched this thing as I drove toward it.
It became apparent that it was not just an Ed Walters UFO, because many other witnesses came forward, city council people, ministers, so many people that we felt like it was a whole community-wide thing.
UFO researchers were intrigued. One was an optical physicist, Dr. Bruce Maccabee.
From November of 1987 to July of 1988, there were probably well over 100 sightings with several hundred witnesses involved.
The floodgates had opened. It seemed that everyone had a UFO story.
I saw what I thought was a shooting star, and it went whew, like this and just stopped. And then all of a sudden, another one came whoosh, like this.
The red light came in and it pulsated for a while, and then it turned bright white.
And there was this huge orange globe hanging there. It was about like 4 stories high, and it was hovering over the water.
I was walking and looked up, and I saw a big shining green oval shining right through the cloud. It was very vivid color, very bright neon green.
The atmosphere in Gulf Breeze started to reach fever pitch, with people desperate to see their own UFO. Residents started to congregate on the beaches at night and became known as the Sky Watchers.
Come on, follow it down. Shoot her up. Shoot her up. Shoot her up. It's turning. Something's pointing down out of it. There is. Oh, big, red, bright. It's coming towards us, isn't it? I can see that with my naked eye. Wow. And it's shooting out to the right.
We started going out on watches, and from there on, it's just been a wild and crazy ride of watching UFOs in the sky around here.
There's 2 of them. There's 3 of them.
Did you see the white? Did you see the white black spot in the middle with the ring all around it points of light all around?
Look, drop.
So what were the Sky Watchers seeing? Gulf Breeze has one of the world's highest concentrations of air bases, which makes it almost impossible not to see an aircraft when you look up at the sky. Whatever the truth, it certainly seems that many people in Gulf Breeze believe they've had a close encounter. This has led to the foundation of a most unlikely support group.
I know that I fought them. I mean, I can remember fighting them, you know, because I remember kicking one and I remember punching another one. So I know I fought them.
I started this support group about 3 years ago for people who felt that they had been abducted by aliens and taken aboard a craft and had medical procedures performed on them, then brought back. What I was I was standing at my kitchen window, and one of the little fellows was outside the window, you know, eye high, even though he was really a short fellow. Somehow he was eye to eye with me, and I'm pounding on the blinds and just screaming at him, "Go away, you can't come in." And all his reaction was, you know, just kind of thinking to me was, well, gee, I thought we had some kind of a relationship here. He was surprised that he thought I would ask them in.
I was riding my bicycle, and a craft did come down and take me, and they were doing surgery on my knees.
So are these people hysterical, or are they really experiencing alien visitation? Stanton Friedman, would you rather those people had not made those claims?
No, actually, I'm glad they did, that they had courage enough to. I've been to Gulf Breeze, I've talked to Dr. Maccabee, I've met Ed and several of the other people there. Out of context, it sounds weird, but when you find similar sorts of stuff going on all over the country, you're beginning to say that, well, the real explanation here is there is a new disease out there. I find that relatively foolish. Also, I've worked with the professionals, the PhDs, the MDs, who have worked with abductees. That's just a little slice of the whole picture. And I'm convinced from working with those people that certainly hundreds of people across a huge country, at least hundreds, have been abducted. Now, whether we can make sense out of it or not is another question.
Well, let's see if Chris French can make sense out of it. What do you say?
Well, I mean, one of the things that's slightly difficult about this kind of programme is you cover so much in that single excerpt. I mean, you mentioned Ed Walters. For example, Ed Walters is very likely a hoaxer. I mean, I
don't agree at all. Have you met him?
Let me finish. A papier-mâché model of a UFO was found in his loft by the person who moved into his house
the pictures.
after he moved out. He's a known hoaxer. He makes double exposure films.
False accusation again.
That they actually helped him to make. There's sworn statements saying that they actually helped in the hoax. That's one part of it. Once rumour gets round that there are sightings, and of course everybody starts to look at the sky. Any single thing that's slightly out of the ordinary is, great, I'm part of this, I've seen a UFO. Then we get on to the abductees. This is we could spend a whole programme on the abductees. The techniques that are used to actually get at these stories very often involve hypnotic regression, other similar types of technique.
Not always.
And these, not always, but there are other similar types of technique as well, not just hypnosis. And we know that far from this being a way of revealing the truth about hidden memories, what this is a way to encourage fantasy. There is a mass of experimental evidence to show this.
Well, let us talk about what might not be fantasy. David Hughes, as an astronomer, what is your idea of what they might actually have seen?
I have no idea what they have seen, but what fascinates me is how poor their photographs are. I mean, in my 40 years of holiday snaps, my snaps have got better. I have a better camera, it focuses automatically. Why are these UFO pictures always out of focus and always fuzzy?
They're not always out of focus, and they're not always fuzzy.
But these were. And also, when I see
taken at
stars...
night.
When I see stars with my friends, I can always make my mind up whether I'm seeing 2 or 3. And why are these people debating something that
They're shouting
simplistic?
as another one comes into view.
Let me ask Tim Good. Tim Good, you've talked to abductees. What is your feeling about them?
My feeling is that I have to take your point, actually. I think Dr. French is quite right. There has been a tremendous amount of fantasy and exaggerations, people jumping on the bandwagon. I don't think it's any coincidence that the number of abduction reports has increased corresponding to the landing of the X-Files in the United Kingdom. Having said that, I have spoken to people who have fully conscious recollections of having been abducted. No hypnosis involved, which I think can be very unreliable and dangerous, and I'm convinced that some of those people have actually been abducted.
Frank, what do you think?
I think I'm very concerned about the danger aspect. I am concerned about the way that people, for whatever motives, are exploiting these sort of things, and people, some of whom might well need real medical treatment, are being taken off by these hypnotherapists or whatever they call themselves. This is a serious matter, and I find programs like this somewhat concerning to me, that the way they increase this hysteria. It's not a good thing.
Oh, point taken. I think there was a measure of agreement on both sides there about the dangers of hysteria.
Remember that many of the people who work with abductees are mental health professionals who are very concerned, first of all, about the mental health of the abductee, and secondly, about whatever UFO experience they may or may not have had. We're not dealing just with parlor games here.
Can I come back on that? I mean, this is an important issue. I have not seen a single study that has shown that what these people are doing actually makes their clients any better. They clearly are distressed people that go to seek help. There's not a single outcome study. Is it actually ethical to convince people that they've had these experiences if we don't have any independent verification?
You're saying that it's the person who's working with the purported abductee who is convincing them they've had the experience. It's been my experience.
On at least some occasions this is happening, Stanton. You can't deny it. I'm sure
just the reverse is often.
You say it is, he says it's the reverse, and I must wind up this section of the programme. Whatever you may think of the dangers of the hysteria, don't forget our phone lines are still open. The numbers again are 0891 980 111 if you believe aliens have visited the Earth, and 0891 980 222 if you don't. This is a television programme. It's time for us to take another break. Coming up, the conversation that NASA doesn't want you to hear between 2 astronauts who've just spotted a UFO. Well, don't go away. We'll be back with more of that incident and its unexpected conclusion. Earlier, we touched upon the possibility that governments are engaged in a massive cover-up. Now, the footage we're about to show was supplied to us by an aerospace communications consultant who was monitoring NASA transmissions. As far as we know, this is the only tape that exists. What you'll hear is a conversation which takes place between 2 experienced astronauts, Mark Lee and Stephen Smith, shortly after they returned to the shuttle's airlock from a spacewalk in which they undertook repairs to the Hubble telescope. It took place on February the 18th this year. Now, what you see here is NASA's control at Houston. The communications console is in the top left-hand part of the picture. You'll hear the conversation the astronauts are having, and then you'll see an official get up over on the left here suddenly and go to the console, shortly after which the transmission is terminated. Here's the conversation.
be. What? I just thought of it in my imagination. Yeah. I saw it too, so it's not. There's two of them. There's another one. What are they? There's sort of lights flickering in here. They're taking pictures. What is this? Is this thing passing in front of the... What are the lights? Which one? Oh, no, I was guessing that one for a second, but I had that one the whole time. Yeah, I was looking at that one too.
Right, Stanton Friedman, what did you make of that? Was it significant?
Well, I presume the astronauts would have been well aware if there was any other body in space near them doing such a maneuver, you know, being outside, working on the Hubble, where you have to be careful. So I don't think we're talking about local flights of any airline, so to speak. What it was, I don't know. The usual explanation for strange stuff near the shuttle is pieces of ice that come loose when it rotates, other things related to the shuttle itself. On the other hand, I would have to expect that these guys would be extraordinarily experienced at that. They've been outside, they've seen stuff go off it. I don't know what to make of it. I've heard about this, but I hadn't heard it before.
Well, let's see.
I'm fascinated.
Yeah, Frank Close.
Well, could I come in on this one? I think I might be able to actually solve a mystery live on air. I have been informed by James Oberg, who I'm sure you know, that what's actually happening here, as we've actually heard, the astronauts were in the airlock at the time. Now, they were basically dozing, then they noticed some LEDs on a piece of diagnostic hardware that they'd brought in with them and started musing about the lights on that box. They were inside the airlock. Even the UFO webpage makes this clear. And there's only a 3-inch window with a view of the payload bay. It's impossible for them to have seen anything in outer space. Now, we can check this. We don't need to argue about it. Explanation.
Can't argue, I don't know.
This, of course, is one of a number of very interesting tapes that have come forward from NASA. And I've heard it said on occasion that some of these objects, and of course there are some films of this, are ice crystals falling off the shuttle. Well, some of these films, and I don't know whether we have them, but you know, they're intriguing viewing, show objects which move and then stop and then change direction. These are things, I think, clearly under some sort of intelligent control.
Well, hopefully we're going to actually have Captain Edgar Mitchell on a video link. Am I right on that?
Yes,
He actually is on record, and he's, as you know, very much a pro-UFO person. He is on record as saying that all of the reports, alleged reports from astronauts are, we're after the watershed, bullshit.
Well, I think there are some...
Yeah, well, that's a nice word to use to go on to the next item. I'm not going to use it myself, but we asked NASA to supply us, incidentally, with the original stock footage of the airlock incident on mission STS-82, I think it was called. They said they weren't able to do so. They also denied there was any incident on that mission involving strange lights and said the conversation in the airlock related to a faulty light on a console inside the shuttle, which ties up with what you said. But all the same, the conspiracy and cover-up theory has been used by the UFO lobby for the last 50 years to explain the lack of solid physical evidence. Are governments behaving unreasonably, or is the truth less fanciful and they're simply trying to protect their own military secrets?
Could these be the UFOs that make people believe we've been visited by aliens? None of these are familiar sights in our skies, but they are all man-made. All were once top-secret military aircraft. And it comes as no surprise that many UFO sightings come near military bases, where aircraft like these were developed. So was that the case at Rendlesham Forest in Norfolk?
Stop the car. Look at that. Do you see that in the woods?
Senior defense figures are convinced something did happen in that isolated wood. A former chief of the defense staff, Lord Hill Norton, is one of them.
One can't help feeling that something is being concealed. Either the Americans, and indeed the deputy base commander, were hallucinating, or they believed that something had landed there and they had taken photographs and records of it. And in either event, it must be of interest to the defense of the United Kingdom.
Was the strange triangular craft spotted by so many US airmen really a top-secret new aircraft whose existence was known to only a few? Or was it a UFO? And has the British government been involved in a cover-up at the highest level?
The ministry have doggedly denied that anything untoward occurred there, and I simply don't believe it. Therefore, somebody, I don't know who it is sitting on information which by now should be public.
In the USA, many sightings have come in or around this vast top-secret complex. Known as Area 51, it is a known proving ground for new aircraft at the cutting edge of technology. It is patrolled day and night, and warning signs are everywhere. Intruders risk being shot. What is the American government trying to hide?
We acquired this unknown object, aircraft some type. One, it appears to be going outbound real slow. There's hardly any range velocity.
This remarkable footage of a craft was allegedly filmed by United States Air Force cameras inside Area 51. It was smuggled out and has undergone rigorous examination, but still baffles the experts. The craft is doing things no conventional aeroplane is capable of.
I'm familiar with footage taken by these kinds of cameras at this test range, and it does look extremely authentic, so I think a fake or a hoax is unlikely. What's interesting is the reaction of the observers you can hear in the background here.
Where'd it come from? Way down. On this unknown aircraft. T1 control doesn't know what type of aircraft it is either.
These people are used to seeing hundreds of airplanes cross this test range every day. They know all about military jets, yet what they're seeing clearly baffles them. And when you look at some of the data that's scrolling in the screen, you can tell, for instance, it's hopping about all over the place, it's staying stationary, it then moves off very fast. It's doing things that no normal aeroplane would do, so it's pretty baffling. It is, in the strictest sense of the word, an unidentified flying object.
Is this a UFO or a new jet? Or is it a man-made object based on technology made from a captured spacecraft? Some people believe so.
I have talked with high-level people whose duties, in the course of their duties, had the occasion to examine either material, reports, or bodies, or have knowledge thereof, that confirms the presence of ET on our planet and spacecraft and such technology as they brought with them. It would appear from my investigations and the investigations of others that since the days of Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy, that high-level peoples in the U.S. government, and perhaps other governments, have been systematically excluded from detailed knowledge of this because they had no need to know.
Well, that's an extraordinary statement from Ed Mitchell, and one that we can follow up with him right now as he joins us, hopefully via satellite from Fort Lauderdale. Ed Mitchell, are you there?
About the first zero.
Dr. Mitchell, can you hear us?
On the 0171.
Well, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
I thought of 171.
Hello? Well, we'll try to get hold of him later, so we'll have to leave that for a moment. We were going to be talking about possible government cover-ups, and...
It's easy to prove, Michael.
Easy to prove?
Yes, a group of us went after the NSA. We found that they had over 150 UFO documents. They refused to release them to us and to the federal court judge. We went after the CIA. Freedom of information, people think, is the magic tool that unlocks all the doors. It doesn't. Took me 5 years to get a released CIA UFO document on which you can read 8 words, not very exciting words. There's no question that they're withholding data. CIA, NSA, DIA.
They are withholding data, I admit it. The data that
about UFOs.
The data they are withholding is data that if they were to... We don't know what's there. You can't see through the
We know it's about UFOs.
We know it mentions UFOs. The reason that is given for so much of that paper being blacked out is that to give it would actually reveal methods of intelligence, how they actually obtained that information.
20 years old?
It would give information about personnel who were in other countries who would be in danger if they were to explain that they would actually been spying for the other side all the time. Okay, it's perfect.
These sightings are all happening in the southwest of the United States.
That's nonsense, Frank! Come on!
So if they're happening in other countries, surely they're not covering it up as well.
Why not?
Well, why should they?
Well, hang on,
because of the technological implications. We're not dealing with philosophy here. We're dealing with technology that any country that could duplicate it would rule the planet.
Nick doesn't think that there's a cover-up in the UK.
Not in the UK, no. I think the real issue here is perhaps that we've got serious defence and national security issues which need to be looked at more carefully. We've got structured craft, not just lights in the sky. They're seen on radar. They fly over military bases.
Can I interrupt you, gentlemen, because I think we now have our link with America. So, Ed Mitchell, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I am, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about government cover-ups. Do you think there's been one in the States, your own experience then?
Well, I can't come from my own experience. I can only look at the evidence and tell you what it is.
Do you think the government... Sorry.
There's 2 sources of evidence, and that's from people within government who have been involved in these areas, and they say yes. Then there's also the fact that official pronouncements in the press and, well, in the media, for 30 years have said they're not involved in the UFO business, but secret documentation obtained under Freedom of Information Act and from other sources deny that or show that that's simply not true. So, yes, there is a cover-up. Now, how far back it goes, it probably goes back 50 years or more.
Can I ask you, in your own opinion, is your government using ET technology?
I'm not sure they are knowingly. I have a theory that a lot of what we're seeing today is not under legitimate government control at all, but it is indeed likely using ET technology that it's no longer under constitutional control.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. And good night to Ed Mitchell. There is just enough time for you to get your telephone votes in before the lines close. Having heard what you have for the past 90 minutes or so, do you believe the evidence supports the argument that aliens have already visited Earth? 0891 980 111 if you believe that is the case. 0891 980 222 if you don't. So, an upsum, as we say in the trade, a quick word from each of you. Have you changed your opinions in any whit tonight?
No, I'm convinced there are no good arguments against the reality of flying saucers and a cosmic Watergate.
Tim?
I find myself agreeing with some of the opinions of the skeptics, but I'm still convinced, no doubt at all, that extraterrestrials are here.
Nick Pope?
I've seen evidence of a technology, craft that do things we can't do in terms of speed and manoeuvrability.
Professor Frank Close.
Not a single piece of evidence that requires aliens. Many interesting things, but not aliens.
David Hughes?
Ufology is just a hardware-free zone, and I'm just surprised that aliens are that tidy. We aren't when we explore our planets. We litter them with junk.
Chris French.
That's it. I mean, basically what we're down to is either hearsay, it's very dubious sources. We've never actually got the hard physical evidence that would actually prove it. And once that's there, we'll accept it.
Why are we all so desperate that this should be true? And you're not, of course, but the general public wants this to happen. Is it because of the millennium? Are we replacing religion? What is it all about?
No, we're just calling it how we see it. If we see evidence of a technology that goes beyond the level of our own, then we're simply doing our best to report it and to push it into the public domain, and we'll let the people decide.
Some of us have, after all, been aware of 5,000 physical trace cases from 65 countries. We're aware of the 5 large-scale scientific studies that the skeptics never talk about. There's a vast amount more information than has been shown tonight.
I've referred to one of those studies tonight, Stanton, your favourite, the Project Blue Book Report 14. That's what I was talking about earlier with respect to Hynek's analysis.
David?
I mean, the cases just don't stand out.
Yes, they do.
You'd like a final word, David, on this? Or your side?
Well, I agree with you that there must be life out there in the universe.
Not the question.
What I do not agree is that it has been here, because we have not found serious evidence of it on Earth.
After 50 years.
And cover-up is the
Two
easiest
crash
excuse for lack
saucers
of
and
evidence
rods
there
there
is.
you know.
Thank
But
you
where
very
is the
much.
crashed saucer? Why not
Uncle
bring it
Sam
along?
has
Where
a
is the
cleaning
crash saucer? We haven't answered
technology.
that one. We have had over 100,000 calls this evening, and 92% of those who phoned in actually believe that aliens have already landed on Earth. Perhaps skeptics don't watch programs like this. So we leave you with the skeptics and the alien believers as divided as ever, but I would like to thank all our guests for taking part in the program and for presenting their arguments with so much conviction. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure they are right. Whatever happens, I am insured for $10 million if I am abducted. I got this in America in one of our programs. The trouble is the claim form has to be signed by an alien. So, thank you for being with us. It was fun. Part of it was serious, but it's all over. Good night.
I just thought of it in my imagination. Yeah. I saw it too, so it's not. There's two of them. There's another one. What are they? Somebody's got a light flickering in here.